right, everybody, welcome back to episode 2. We have made it. It has been a huge journey to get to episode 2, so I thank you guys for joining us again today. This is the Couch Sports Talk podcast. I am your boy, Dr. Guzzi, and I got with me, go ahead, introduce yourselves.
What's going on, everybody? This is Phil here, back at it again for another episode. Hope everybody had a blessed week, and let's get right into it.
Yep, Ethan back here for another week. Excited to talk about Redskins and what we got going on there.
All right. Yes, sir. That's probably the biggest news, so we'll talk about that first. We have not only the Washington football team changing their name, which has been going on forever. Like I was watching PTI, and they, both of them dudes are, over 50 years old, especially, what's his name? The white guy, what's his name?
Tony Kornheiser.
Yes, Tony. Tony, that dude, he's old, bro. He's been doing this for a while. And when I was watching, they were both talking about how they remember writing articles in the 80s about how Washington should change their name. So this has been a discussion for a very long time.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that we have to go through these huge civil rights movements in order for things like this to change. And also we have the Cleveland Indians that are changing their name as well. And I'm sure a couple of other teams are going to be jumping on that. I know there's been talks of potentially Florida State Seminoles changing their name, but I don't think that should be changed. I think it's the name. It's the actual name of the tribe. So I don't think that should be changed. Unless, then again, I'm not Native American. I shouldn't have too much of an endpoint of what it means, but I kind of wanted to have a discussion about why it's important that we do this and what maybe we think would be the next names for the Cleveland Indians or the Washington football team. So I'll let you guys go ahead.
Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, just right off the bat, like you were saying, Jordan, I mean, this is something that, to be frank, is far overdue. I honestly, it doesn't surprise me, but I just can't believe that we've had a team for 50, 60, 70, 80 years that has a derogatory slur as their mascot name officially. And I mean, it's a shame that it's taken this long to get there, but I know a lot of Washington fans are probably happy that this is coming and they can support their team guilt-free once this goes through. So I'm really happy for that organization that they're making the right choice here. And hopefully they can change it to a name that better reflects, just not being the Redskins. Yeah. I'm happy that that's going through. Ditto to everything with the Cleveland Indians. There's just no need for that. And as far as names go, I know other Washington teams, you got the Nationals, for example, so you can go somewhere along that route, play up the fact that they're in the Metro DMC area, or they can go, the Washington Wizards. That's not exactly tied to the location. So they have a lot of avenues they can go through. I'm excited to see what they choose to do. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that situation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. Long overdue. I think throughout my whole lifetime, I've seen people talk about it and just, it's something that's need to been gone for a while. So glad they're finally making the move. Out of the names I've seen so far, I think I really liked the Red Tails, especially with everything going on. With the shout out to the Tuskegee Airmen, I think that would be a cool thing for the NFL to do. I think it's a lot better move than, playing another song before the national anthem. I don't know. I think it was in the right mindset, but I know a lot of people aren't happy about it, and I just don't know if that
nobody's asking for it. Nobody's asking for it.
I just don't know if that was the move that needed to be made. There's a lot of other things that need to be fixed before that. With Cleveland, I haven't really seen many name changes. The one that I have seen that I really liked was the Cleveland Buckeyes, which was a Negro League team in the 40s and 50s. So I think that would be cool for them to bring it back, and it'd be pretty unique. And the logo sets and the jerseys are still there, so they could already have throwbacks in right when they change the name.
Yeah, I agree. And I think with this going on, it's actually going to be a blessing in disguise for a team like the Washington's football team because, my gosh, they have needed a rebrand for so long. They have been terrible for so long. They have been in the bottom five franchises, potentially bottom three, potentially bottom one. Dan Snyder is a horrendous owner. He is just the symbol of what we are trying to get away from right now with these ignorant elites who think they can control things. And it is unfortunate that we have to have companies like Nike and FedEx coming out and taking money from his pockets in order for there to be change. But change is going to happen nonetheless. So I guess we just got to accept that and appreciate that while we have it. And I actually do like for to replace the Redskins name, I would like Warriors or the Red Tails. I think those two were probably my favorites from what I've seen. But yeah, they could go along with what's going on in DC and just to pick a name from that. I don't think it'd be too difficult. I think any name really is going to be better than that. So, and they don't got bad colors. I think when, if you look at my background, like they can kind of keep the same colors and still have, a different name. That doesn't need to be a complete overhaul of who they are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. And maybe the whole rebranding will do wonders for them. Who knows? You guys got any more to say on that topic?
Big shout out to Alex Smith, man. Love that guy.
Alex Smith, yes, sir.
Hope he recovers, and if he can play football again one day, that'll be a hell of a sight to see. Still love him from his 49er days. Just a great guy, awesome professional, really underrated career, I think. And I hope he's able to shine with the Washington team and whatever they end up being called. I know Ethan's with me on that one.
Yeah, love Alex Smith. If I wasn't pulling so hard for Haskins, I would hope Alex Smith could come back in and play this season. But, hopefully he'll get his chance. Maybe they'll get him to Jacksonville before the deadline and he can get some PT in.
I would have really loved to seen Alex Smith have a chance with the Patriots. I think he would have fit that offense very nicely.
That's a good call. Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And that was just something I thought of. I thought, it's a great idea. So.
Well, we never know what could happen. They also got Kyle Allen in the trade with the Panthers. So,
Oh my God.
They're not. I don't think they're going to carry three quarterbacks. One of those guys is definitely going to get cut.
And Ron Rivera loves Kyle Allen, obviously.
Yeah, and that's why they traded for him. Yeah, so I think Alex Smith's on his way out, and, we could see him go into another team and playing a backup role or going to a Jacksonville and competing for a starting role. And, there's always going to be injuries throughout the season. You never know who's going to go down and who's going to need a quarterback come week 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, but I would also not trip if he retired. I think that's something he should heavily consider.
Right.
You never know. That was just an awful, awful injury.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't something similar happen to, what was it, the Bears tight end? Like a couple years ago, 3 years ago? And he almost died. No? This isn't ringing any bells?
I'm not familiar with that story, nah.
Oh.
Okay. Well,
What's
we're
his
not
name?
gonna. Maybe last name Miller, something. I don't know, something like that. I can't remember. I'm terrible at names.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll just go ahead, move on because speaking of the Washington team, they are in a heavily competitive, mediocre division. That is unfortunately something that we all have to see on almost a weekly basis because for some reason we always have to have the NFC East teams in primetime games.
Yep.
So not only do we have to see how terrible the Cowboys can be on their worst days, but we have to consistently see those worst days, whether it is every other Sunday night or Thanksgiving. And unfortunately, last season, one team had to make the playoffs. But
they gave it a good effort. They gave it a good effort when they got there.
I can't hate on it. I can't hate on it. So we'll go ahead and actually start from bottom to top based on how they finished last year in the division. And the worst team, like I was saying earlier, just horrendous franchise, hopefully turning it around with a rebrand as the Washington team. And looks like they're kind of getting past Dan Snyder's ego, so hopefully that it helps them. And then they shake off the bad name off their back. And there's potential new energy now with that name change. They now have a new young quarterback who has the potential to be really good, be great. And then they have a potential superstar in Chase Young that they just got number 2 overall in the draft. And then also bringing in that new energy is my man Ron Rivera, who's actually in huge support of changing the name. And I think that helps him out a lot and gaining that locker room and gaining respect with the city and really just bringing more respect towards that team in general within the NFL. So what do you guys see as something that this Washington team can excel in and potentially improve on in comparison to last season?
I mean, just looking at their roster, I see they have, on paper, a pretty solid defense. I mean, obviously, with picking up Reuben Foster, very low risk, high risk, high reward situation there. I mean, regardless of his off the field problems, that guy can ball, no question. Obviously, Chase Young, that's a guy who I think is the best player in this year's draft. I'm not saying anything negative about Joe Burrow. He's a quarterback, more valuable. I understand that. But regardless of position, I think Chase Young was the top talent in this draft, and he's obviously a game changer. If he can get off, pressure the quarterback, rack up those sacks, it's going to be really a game changer for that defense. I guess on the offensive side, I really want to see Darius Geis. I know he's someone that a lot of people were high on when he was coming out, had some injury issues there, but if they can establish a run, it'll take a lot of pressure off of Haskins, open up that offense a little more. Also excited to see what Terry McLaurin can do this year. I know he had a really good year last year, and just see what they can do with that talent. And excited for Ron Rivera, of course, to get another chance. I'm a big fan of his, so yeah.
Mess with that. So, Ethan, I'll let you expand on that, but then also, could you also answer the question of, is this Washington team going to be able to compete this year in the division?
This year, I don't see it being their year. They definitely improved the team. They're going in the right direction. I think one big thing I want to point out with bringing Ron Rivera in, Dwayne Haskins very much has the makeup and model of young Cam Newton when he went on that tear for the couple seasons, won an MVP. He's kind of got that big body. I can throw the ball pretty good, and I'm athletic enough to run when I need to. I don't think he runs as much as Cam did when he was young, but I think he's got that build.
Cam's also 6'10".
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I think he's 6'5". But I definitely see that playing, to their benefit. And then I know Phil was talking about Terry McLaurin. He's a baller, dude. Like, that's one of my boys. He's gonna come out and have a good year. Follow up that rookie season. Darius Geis, I hope he can stay healthy. I've seen good things when he is healthy. They also got Adrian Peterson, and then I know they drafted a running back this year. But one thing I think did hold them back this year, they had no second-round picks. So that's kind of why I think they're kind of at a stall where they're obviously going to better than the 3-13 season. I see something around like 6-10. But another thing to consider is the NFC East plays the AFC North this year, which is one of the best divisions of football. So for the Redskins, that might be an 0-4 or a 1-3, or whatever they're going to be named at that point. I got to get used to not calling them that. But, I think they're in the right direction. And then I know they got a little bit of a haul for Trent Williams. Did they get some draft picks with Reuben Foster as well, or?
No, Reuben Foster, he was cut by the Niners, so they just got him basically for the F.
So Trent Williams came with draft picks. I think he came with like a second rounder. I don't think they got a first for him, but anything will help going into that next year. The drafts have been really good recently. Talent's really picking up. this year we saw probably, I think, the most talented draft we've ever seen. 60 guys could have been in the first round, I think, for sure. So I think, going into next year with the surplus of picks, give them 2 years and they're going to be in the clear and, definitely competing for that division.
While we're on the topic of the Redskins, I got to ask Ethan, just a little background. In our fantasy football league, Ethan is the CEO of drafting random Redskins players. So, Ethan, I want you to touch on Chris Thompson, one of your favorite fantasy football players of all time, because Lord knows you drafted him 3 years in a row with about 0 results.
Hey, no, don't say 0 results. So here's the thing, in PPR leagues, Chris Thompson, rack up 8 receptions a week, even though he only gets 20 yards out of those 8 receptions. That's 8 points right there. So PPR leagues, he's definitely worth it. I don't know where he is now. I know he's not with Washington anymore. He had a lot of injury problems, but yeah.
Do you have another low-key player?
Like that.
Do you have another low-key player that's on the team that you would consider drafting?
This year, if I had a late round pick, I don't like to give him up early. It's early, but 3rd round pick, running back, Antoine Gibson. I might be taking him. Guys has had his injury problems. Peterson's getting up there with age. They didn't draft a running back just for fun.
Okay.
3rd round,
All right.
That's not a waste pick. That's like we're gonna try and develop something out of this. And we've seen, over the past couple of years what we can do with 3rd to 5th round running backs excelling in the NFL. So
true.
If I was picking up anybody this year, him and maybe Terry McLaurin for sure. But I think he'll be probably, first 5 rounds for sure after last year.
Yeah, Terry will probably go a little too high, but thank you for that. We're just scouting Ethan out here for our fantasy football league. That was all that was about.
Hell yeah. And the last thing I'll say about them is, I hope with the name change and everything they can turn things around because they have been. I'm one of the guys that hates seeing like the same franchises be ass because then it just makes the draft not fun because they're gonna ruin the players. So. Yeah, I'm a Kings fan. Yeah.
Shout out to the Kings.
But so it'll be nice, once they start using those draft picks and gaining more draft picks and kind of getting away from what they did with RG3, throwing away like 5 years of their potential development of young players and just turn things around. And I think the future is bright, especially with new guy Chase Young. And, Haskins, he looks shredded in those videos when he's working out with just a couple of friends for social distancing.
Yeah.
But, Ethan, I also will say that Haskins, I don't think will be anywhere near Cam Newton. Cam Newton's just something special.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just think he's got the build and, Ron Rivera can work with that.
Okay, but I don't think you're understanding that Cam Newton looks like Bane, bro. Like he was not playing.
One other low-key signing for Washington, they got Ronald Darby too. That's a low-key pickup.
Did they?
But, that helps on the defense. I know their defense wasn't very good last year. But like I said, I think they're moving in the right direction. I just don't think this year is the year they're going to be in contention.
2-3 years. I could see it.
Agreed.
And then this now gives us the opportunity to move on to the next team. And that is the New York Giants. And they have a new coach with potentially a new culture that will maybe hint in a little splashes of Patriot way in there. And then also we have Saquon Barkley. Oh, my goodness. Saquon Barkley, of course, is the thickest of boys who just runs over even – those are thick boys, too. He's just the thickest of them thicks, and he is putting in the work, okay? And then we have Daniel Jones, who everybody thought was a little bit of a reach at pick number 8, and not this last draft, but the year before. And he had a very solid rookie season. I'm actually going to go more into depth later on in the show about Daniel Jones and his numbers and maybe how people are still underrating him, even though he went out and showed out with that shitty team. And then they drafted a left tackle, I believe, and unless I'm getting that confused. No, they drafted left tackle, right? 4th overall.
Yeah.
Not remember his name because I messed up on my research.
Andrew
Yes.
Auburn.
Yes, and he's no, that wasn't it Georgia?
No, I think he's from. I'm pretty sure he's from Auburn.
Okay. Well, anyways, I know he's very good. He was the top offensive line in the draft.
So we've run it through our fact checking team, and it's actually Georgia. Just so we're
Okay. All right.
Let's go. And you can never sleep on the Giants because of one thing, and one thing only. It's New York, baby. They bring that energy. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So
that 5-11 energy.
yes, but
both teams.
They got that New York grind in them. You know what I'm saying? Like they understand what it takes to be an underdog and still go out there and perform. So I do like the new direction the Giants are heading in, and I'll let you guys continue the conversation on that.
Honestly, I'm lower on the Giants than I am on the Redskins. I don't see much from them. I think Daniel Jones, was it too high that he got picked there? Maybe, but like you said, he had a really solid rookie year. And I'm looking at their depth chart. I think their offense is pretty solid. I mean, they have Saquon Barkley, obviously. Dion Lewis behind him is a third down back potentially. Their receiving core is not bad at all. They have Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, and Darius Slayton. Evan Ingram, borderline top 5 tight end, I'd argue. Their offensive line, I know they're not performing well, but they've obviously tried to fill that hole with Andrew Thomas. Their defense, that's where it goes downhill for me. I don't see much there. I know they used to have talent. They used to have, some Landon Collins action. But I'm just not seeing it now. Honestly, I think their defense is going to get torn apart this year, particularly against teams like the Eagles. I think Carson Wentz is going to have a lot of fun with that defense. I mean, certainly I'm not the highest on Dak, but I think Dak can dice that up a little bit as well with what he's shown. So I don't know. I'm getting strong 4-12 vibes from this team.
Again?
Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe they won't. But I also think their front office is underrated in how bad it is. I just say, off the top, I have more confidence in the Redskins front office, which is saying something, and with Ron Rivera as the coach as opposed to this new guy from the Patriots. I'd make the argument too that Bill Belichick's coaching tree is not that good. Really, I think a lot of Bill Belichick's success comes from him himself. I mean, even the most highly vaunted prodigy of his, Josh McDaniels, wasn't very successful in his stints. Obviously, Matt Patricia has had some problems. Brian Flores actually is looking pretty good, so that's good for you and all the Dolphins fans, all 6 of you out there.
Don't sleep on Bill O'Brien, bro.
Oh, don't get me started. We'll get to Bill O'Brien eventually.
Romeo Crennel, bro.
Okay. Bill O'Brien, bad GM, but he's not a terrible coach.
No, he's
definitely a terrible GM. Probably the worst in football.
I would give him a solid 7.75 out of 10 on my coaching scale.
That's fair. I mean, he has Deshaun Watson, which is the ultimate Band-Aid for your bad coaching, if it's there, So take it with a grain of salt. But
now the biggest coaching challenge for him this season is he going to be able to coach up a team where the GM fucked up the team. So can he make up for his mistakes? Now, maybe we don't know. Maybe this dude's a genius. And
David Johnson's going to come out and 2,500 total yards this year.
Maybe he'll be better than he was 3 years ago. Who knows? And then maybe Hopkins is fucking ass. Maybe he comes out and he's terrible.
No.
I guess.
So, but yeah, I have no hope for that. But yes, we're going back to the Giants. We got off on a little bit of a tangent because the Bill O'Brien hate is very strong on this show.
We can't help it. When Bill O'Brien gets brought up, we have to spend at least 2 minutes discussing it. So apologies in advance. But anyway, Ethan, what are your thoughts on this team?
I actually have a little bit of love for the Giants this year. I think Joe Judge is going to be a good coach. I know they also got some assistant coaches from New England that I think are going to, come into play. Daniel Jones is good. I think Darius Slayton is really good, but Sterling Shepard and Golden Tate are getting hurt a lot at this point in their career. So filling that number 2 spot might be kind of tough. But then you got Saquon, and then they really solidified the offensive line this year.
Mm-hmm.
But like Phil said, that defense is just god awful. I see them winning between 4 and 6 games all because of the defense. They might put up 25 points a game and still go 4-12. I think
25 is a little much.
That division is going to run through the defense. I think the AFC North is going to run through that defense. It's going to be an ugly year for that New York defense. But next year, they can make some improvements and definitely keep going in the right direction. But offense is pretty good now.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, they have their QB, and that's the most important thing, so they can build from there. Doesn't hurt to have Saquon as well.
And after talking about it with you guys, I'm actually going to say that I believe Washington will do better. It might just be a game or two, but they will do better than the Giants.
Agreed.
What do you
think? My Giants fantasy pick right here. My fantasy pick from the Giants this year, Darius Slayton, for sure. Balled out last year.
Okay.
He's up and coming. He's still a little bit slept on, so we'll see. He might be a 5th, 6th rounder guy. We'll see.
That's early.
You think that's early, but I think that's late. So, but I definitely see Washington outperforming New York, at least by a game or two.
Would you say that's strictly because of the defenses and when you compare them to?
Yep, 100%. Yeah.
No question.
I think their offenses should probably have about the same amount of production. But yeah, the defense is definitely going to be a big differentiating factor, if I even said that correctly. I like that conversation. Giants, up-and-coming team as well as Washington is, but I think we can all agree that they need a little bit more time to get things together. And now we can get into the two teams that are most likely going to be competing for the number one spot in this division. And we're going to go ahead and start with the Cowboys because we're going to go with the order. And they finished second in the division, even though they were supposed to win the Super Bowl, apparently. So they have a new coach. And what's awesome about that is in his last coaching job, he had the same problems that Garrett had. Just a stale offense with no changes or improvements as the year goes on. So we'll see how that is. But it's such a typical Jerry Jones hire. Like, I seen that coming from a mile away. And then we have Zeke on that team, who is very good, but also had a down year last year in comparison to how good he can actually be. One thing that I see affecting the season for the Cowboys is the fact that Dak has still not received a long-term deal. It's either going to make him play worse or it can make him play better. And then if he plays better, I can see him leaving. So that could have just a big impact on the way that the whole team plays as a whole. And what did I say here? Last year, I think this is the last year that we're going to see the Cowboys really compete as a top team, because after this year, they're really going to have to start paying everybody. They've already seen the problems with that, with them having to pay DeMarcus Lawrence and having to pay for Cooper. And I just think as a whole, they're overrated. Every year, they're overrated. Every year, we get told they're supposed to be in the Super Bowl. Every year, they have 50 Sunday night games. Every year, they shit the bed on Thanksgiving. Every year, they get all the way to the end just to give us a little tease of what they could be, just to fall flat on their face. I despise the Cowboys because of the fact that everybody gives them so much love. Everybody talks about them so damn much for them to absolutely do nothing. So I'll let you guys go ahead and expand on that.
Jordan, I actually disagree with you on this. You said a lot about every year they disappoint. That's correct. Every year they're supposed to win the Super Bowl. That's correct. But I'd also like to add that every year before this, they had Jason Garrett as the head coach. And I think, pound for pound, Jason Garrett might have been one of the worst coaches of the decade. Perhaps
pound
the worst.
For pound, he was quite slim.
Okay. Whatever metric you want to throw out there, I think he was the worst coach of the decade. Because I think this Cowboys team, this might even be a hot take, I think they're the most talented roster in football. I really do. And if they're not number one, I think they're up there. And Mike McCarthy, there's some very valid criticisms about him, and especially the back half of his tenure with the Packers, really just underperformed on a consistent basis, especially with Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback. But I think, regardless of his failures and everything else that comes with him, he is a Super Bowl winning coach. He's been in the game for many decades and has had success in more places than just the Packers. So I'm actually excited to see what having a competent coach can do for this football team. Just anybody who's not Jason Garrett, I think that's going to have incremental success because of that. I think the big question comes down to Dak and how motivated he is to play. I know that the contract talks must have them in bad standing right now. And like you said, after this year, they're going to have to start paying their roster, which is going to be a huge problem. But if I'm just taking it with their roster as is, I see 11-5 from this team and potentially a contender.
Okay. We got to see Zeke be motivated as well.
Zeke is a whole nother problem in and of himself. But yeah, you're right. If he's locked in, he's a top 5 running back, no question.
Top 2.
I wouldn't go that far.
I would. I definitely would.
That's fair.
I would say I could see a 10-6 out of them, but that's best case scenario. I don't think the highest of Mike McCarthy. I do think it was a poor hire. There was a lot of other good coaches out there.
No doubt.
College coaches that haven't been in the NFL yet, have potential. People haven't seen what they've done. They don't know their game plan, but they went in that direction. It is what it is. I think their draft was fantastic.
Yeah.
They had
yes. I forgot to mention that.
I think they had a top 3 draft this year. Getting CeeDee Lamb at 17 is a really steal of a pick.
Yeah, definitely.
He was top 10 on my big board. So, and then they got Trayvon Diggs in the second round. He's really good. That's going to help solidify that defense. I think they have a good roster. I think Dak's in a position to succeed. But I do think that harms them going forward. They go out and, Dak throws for 4,500 yards this year and 35 touchdowns because he's got the best receiving core he's had yet. And, they go 10-6, 11-5. Then Dak gets a, full offer from another team and leaves. Well, now you got the 22nd pick. Well, you're not getting, most likely you're not getting a quality quarterback at 22. So I think they're in a really tough spot to where, they want to succeed, but at the same time, they almost don't want to succeed until they get Dak into a long-term deal.
And I think that one thing that we haven't talked about a lot is the fact that we are in the middle of this pandemic and that teams with new coaches might suffer from that. So I think that's another thing that, we got to take into consideration.
I mean, another COVID thing too, I'll just add on to that, is the fact that this is going to hurt revenue across the league, and it actually might play into Jerry's hands. This might actually be good for contract negotiations if the cap goes down, and if there's just less money to go around to QBs. What if they can lock in Dak? I know the previous discussions were 35 to 40 million, but with COVID going on, we might fall on him at 25 to 28 million, which could end up being a steal in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I'll just give a fantasy player for every team.
Please do. Please do.
For the Cowboys this year, I got a tight end. They signed him to a 4-year deal before the season, Blake Jarwin. Mostly known for his blocking, but I think, you in that offense, you're going to find a way to, get involved as the tight end position. We've seen Jason Witten do it for, 10-something years. I just think in the way they run their play, even at Mike McCarthy as the coach, and, I think they're still going to have that same type of vertical shotgun, get it out, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end running back set. So, he'll get involved, I think, for sure.
Just don't draft Amari Cooper. Don't do it. I know you want to. I know you're thinking about it in like that 4th, 5th round. I've done it twice myself. I'm telling you it's not worth it.
What about CeeDee Lamb or Gallup?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Just don't draft Amari Cooper. I'm telling you, please, just listen to me here. You're either going to get a prime Jerry Rice performance or you're going to get 1 catch for 17 yards. It's not worth it. Especially in a playoff game, just don't start him. Don't pick him. Don't trade for him.
It's going to be tough to draft out of those receivers, though, because they're so deep. Like Jordan says, you got Gallup and Lamb in there, too. I mean, that's 3 really good wide receivers, up there with the best receiving cores in the league.
It might just be a stay away. Just don't draft anybody outside of Zeke.
I'm iffy on McCarthy because it'll be interesting to see what he's going to be able to do without having someone like that bad man, Aaron Rodgers. But then also, you got to take into account that this wide receiving core and running back and offensive line, it's probably the best talent he's ever had. It's even better
by
than
far.
Even I would say even better than even like on the defensive side, it has the potential to be a better team than the Super Bowl winning Packers that year.
Yeah.
That he coached in. So I don't know, man. We'll see. But I do see if, things continue to go up with the cases and just everything with the pandemic, man, having the new coach could hurt them and just be a benefit to, really the Eagles, right? Because all the teams have a new coach in the NFC besides the Eagles.
For the Eagles, yep.
So that, that's going to take us into talking about the Eagles. And they drafted a wide receiver in the first round, which they definitely needed to do. I'm not too sure. I haven't watched too much film on, is it how you say Rager? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I haven't watched too much film on him. I know some people said it might have been a reach. Others say it is a solid pick. I think either way, you get someone with first round talent with a quarterback like Wentz, they're going to look good. And Wentz is now coming back with probably an even bigger chip on his shoulder, especially having to leave the playoff game after playing pretty well. He is definitely a player that can be top 5. It'll be interesting to see if he's going to get hurt again or if he can go back to establishing himself as a potential MVP player. And then also, I thought one of my things in my notes that I had was Peterson he's I think not recognized enough for how good of a coach he is, and because of the pandemic, that is going to help him, especially with all the other teams with having a new coach. And then they also do have a new left tackle, and when I get into after this kind of comparing Wentz and Dak, you're going to see a huge differential in sacks. Wentz was smacked around a lot last year, so revamping that offensive line should help. But I know Jason Peters was a very big piece for that team. So we'll see how that works out. Because, a player like Jason Peters, it's more than just the talent he brings to the field. It's that leadership, too. I know he was in a huge part of that locker room. So I'll let you guys go ahead and expand on the Eagles. But I think by far they have the best potential to win this division.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they obviously have the track record. They have the best coach in the division, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the division, in my opinion. And it really just comes down to health with them. They've been, really hit by the injury bug harder than almost any other team the past 2 years. And I agree with you, Jordan. I think Carson Wentz, when he's playing, if you can get 15 games out of him, I think that's a top 5 quarterback. I think he got robbed of MVP the year that he tore his ACL. That's just my opinion, though. I know Tom Brady fans will disagree with me. But really comes down to that O-line and protecting Wentz. But if things break right for them, they could obviously win the division and be a strong contender this year.
Yeah, I think I think they made right moves in the offseason. Getting the receiver in the first round, that was something they really needed to fill. I think going out and getting a tackle, very important. As much as Jason Peters meant to that team the past 3 years, he spent most hurt. I think playing like 5 games a year, and even when he was playing, he was hurt while he was playing. So he wasn't playing up to, Jason Peters' level. They went out and got Darius Slay. That's a big move. He's
big piece.
Definitely.
That's a top corner in the league. I'd say top 10. The Jalen Hurts move, I don't know.
I forgot about that.
A lot of people were really upset about it. I don't dislike it because being a Ravens fan, I've seen a lot of the creativity with the backup quarterbacks in the last couple of years. I won't say it's revolutionizing the game, but I definitely say there's more teams catching on to it it kind of originated with Lamar when he was backing up Joe Flacco, and then you have Taysom Hill also doing his thing in New Orleans, and then now we're, expanding out beyond that and seeing backup quarterbacks play a bigger role. And I think Doug Peterson's very creative, so we might see Hurts get involved in that offense. And then, it gives you, they're probably the best team in the NFL with doing their thing with backup quarterbacks. So It gives you that insurance if, Wentz continues to have the injury problems that he does, you have somebody solid back there that can come in and play. And then, if in 2 years, 3 years down the road, you're like, maybe Wentz isn't the fit anymore, he can't stay healthy, we can run with Hurts and sign him to a long-term deal. But I definitely think they're going to run away with the division, whether it's 11-5 or 12-4 season. I mean, we'll see.
12-4.
I could see it, but it's tough when you got to play the AFC North, especially, with the Steelers coming back this year and coming up. And then, you have the Bengals getting Joe Burrow. So who knows how that's going to turn out. They could be decent this year. So, they got a tough schedule, but they could figure it out. But I definitely think they're probably going to win the division and run away with it.
Yeah, I really like Miles Sanders from what I saw last year. I know they lost Jordan Howard to my boys. I think they traded him, right? Mm-hmm. So that means that they're fairly confident in Miles Sanders, and Corey Clement was pretty solid last year too, right?
As a little third down back, yeah.
And then Alshon Jeffrey, hopefully he can. But the thing is too, Alshon Jeffrey, he's kind of getting up there in age. He's been solid, yeah, but he's probably on the declining part of his career. I don't know exactly how old he is, but just from what I've seen. And Deshaun Jackson, man, that man's still putting in work, so that'll be exciting to see. Throwing in Jalen Reagor with Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson, I think they're going to be able to, especially too with, I always forget about Ertz. Like they got some weapons, and then Dallas Goddard, however you say his name. Yeah, he's really good too. So they got some weapons on offense, and their defense to me has always been pretty solid. I like Fletcher Cox a lot, Brandon Graham, and then Darius Slay. That's a huge pickup. So seems like they're getting their mojo back a little bit. All they need to do is just have Wentz really come through. Just give us one season, man. One season. And I know in the playoffs that wasn't his fault when he got hurt. A little bit of a dirty play. But, hopefully everything just pulls together for him. I could see a really bright future. Still a very good team.
My fantasy player to watch for the Eagles, Jordan already mentioned him, Miles Sanders. I've been seeing a lot of Eagles fans really excited about Miles Sanders. I got to watch him play a little bit. As we all did, because they had, 3-4 primetime games, of course.
Yeah.
But, he's definitely got big potential, and I think they're really investing in letting him play and giving him that one role. So if I could get him in the first 4 rounds this year, I definitely think that's a steal.
What about Boston Scott? I see on this list that he's second on the depth chart, but I can't remember some plays from.
He played a little bit last year towards the end of the year when they were just having a lot of injuries. He's okay. I think Corey Clement will fill that role a little bit better, though.
Yeah.
That third down back, kind of passing down back. But Miles Sanders could definitely be, all 3 down back because he can catch out of the backfield and, do everything they need him to do.
Definitely. So since we're doing these deep dives, I kind of wanted to introduce maybe a new thing that we can do, and that is just comparing position by position some of the top players within the division. And I got to start with Zeke and Saquon, 2 of the best running backs in the league. Saquon is just a walking tree. That dude got that trunk on him, bro. Okay? And then Ezekiel Elliott, right? He's everything that you want in a running back. He can do it all. And when you actually compare the numbers from the 2 of them last year, Saquon didn't his numbers aren't going to match up well because he did miss some games from injury. He missed out on 3 games. So, but when you look at the numbers, Saquon had a 4.3 yards per attempt, where Zeke had 4.5. So, it's pretty similar. But one thing that really did catch my eye with Zeke is that, maybe he didn't have too much of a down year because he played 3 more games than Saquon, but yet I guess it's closer to 400 extra yards more. And then also one thing, though, that did kind of, I didn't think this would happen with Zeke, with a player like him. Saquon actually had 7 20-plus yard runs. Zeke only had 4. And then Zeke's longest run of the season was 33 yards. I thought that was insane. And Saquon's sitting out here with a 68-yard run. And
I remember that run.
It was hot. And then Zeke did do well. He had got 11 touchdowns, and Saquon got 6. So I think Saquon, especially being younger, he has more room to grow. And they're going to have the improved offensive line. So, it'll be interesting to see the comparisons at the end of the season. And then if you look at the receiving yards, you have, so Zeke played in 3 more games, right? But yet he only has 5 more catches, 2 more targets. So Saquon's going to be more of a centerpiece for the Giants, right? In comparison to the Cowboys, who have an abundance of weapons. And then Saquon actually had 9 more yards receiving than Zeke did. So I don't know. I think going forward from now, I would definitely rather have Saquon. So I was just interested to see what you guys think. Which player would you rather have?
For me, it's Saquon, and it's not really particularly close. I don't want to come across as disrespectful. Zeke is a hell of a running back. Don't get me wrong. Me personally, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I've been loving watching him play ever since then. But Saquon is special. He really is the complete package at running back. I don't really think he has a weakness that's so identifiable that it stands out to me. And with Zeke, I know a lot of his off-the-field stuff is alleged. It's not concrete, but for better or for worse, the man can't stay out of the news. It's always something with him. It's either he did something when he was drunk, or he has a sexual assault allegation.
I'm faded.
Yeah, or he's faded, or he comes into camp. He comes into camp out of shape, or whatever it may be.
Giving everybody COVID.
Exactly, yeah. Not quarantining. So for me, first of all, with Saquon, like you said, there's never a question on whether or not he's in shape. The dude is ripped and he's jacked year-round. And for what I've seen, he hasn't been in the news cycles at all. He just seems to show up, do his work, and go home. So for me, with the production, like you mentioned, and really the fact that Saquon was the centerpiece of the Giants' offense last year, which might explain why he was getting zeroed in on so much by the defenses. I think if you were to switch them, I think Saquon would probably put up monster numbers in Dallas. So for me, I'm going to take Saquon. And obviously, the other logical part of this is that Saquon's on his rookie contract, whereas Zeke just got that huge extension. And I'm not a big fan of paying running backs big money, so I would just take the one who's on the cheaper deal right now. But even still, in a vacuum, I would still take Saquon over Zeke.
If you are listening to this and you've made it this far, first I want to appreciate and thank you. But I want you to comment down below. Please tell me another man that is as thick as Saquon. I bet you can't do it. I bet you can't. But go ahead, Ethan. What do you think?
I definitely take Saquon. There's no question about it. If I was building a team as a manager, they were on the same deal. Saquon had a $10 million a year more deal. I might still consider taking Saquon. The thing is with Zeke, for me, is I like him. He's a really good player, and no disrespect to him. A lot of times, and I know we're going to talk about this later a little bit, I think we forget that players are just people too. They kind of just grow up in the same way. And I think he's very young, and I think it shows, at times it seems like he's more focused on his persona and, how he comes off than he is about actually playing the game. And I think with Saquon, there's never a question of if he's focused on the game or if he's focused on, the cameras or social media or whatever. I think sometimes we see with Zeke him getting caught up in, the media and the post-game interviews. And, I think it happens when you're on the Cowboys too, because you're getting exposed to 4 or 5 primetime games a year, which is post-game interviews all the time. And,
Hey,
you're
don't
getting
sleep on that
exposed
New
to all
York
of
media,
that.
though.
So,
True.
I mean, I would definitely take Saquon 100%. And I think it's a little bit about talent, but more about who I feel is more focused on the game and in the zone and really just, here to play football.
And those legs, bro.
He's sick, no doubt.
Nah, seriously.
And then the next comparison that I wanted to do, which is 2 of the shitty shit teams that are being led by 2 very young quarterbacks in Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins. And I was wondering, which of those 2 would you prefer to have? If you look at the numbers from last year, Daniel Jones's numbers are going to be way higher because Haskins didn't play as much as he did. And I think the biggest thing that you can look at is, so Haskins played 9 games. Daniel Jones played 13. And Daniel Jones in those 13 games was sacked 38 times. Dwayne Haskins in his 9 games was sacked 29 times. So if he would have played 13 games, he would have exceeded that. And I know the thing is with me is the Giants' offensive line was terrible. So, damn. For that to be that high.
No question.
And then one thing, too, that is very intriguing, I think not a lot of people give Daniel Jones credit for, is his ability to run. He ran 44 times last year for 274 yards with a long of 26 yards. He has 6.2 yards per attempt and actually got 2 touchdowns. And he had 44 attempts at running the ball. Haskins only had 20. And Haskins also only had 100 yards in comparison to 274. So even if you were to throw in those extra 4 games for Haskins, I still don't think he's touching those numbers. And once you improve, I think, the offensive line and just give Daniel Jones a little bit more experience, I think his running numbers are only going to go up, especially with the way the league's going now. And I personally believe that when you really watch the film, Daniel Jones, man, he's a good athlete. He's very underrated. And sometimes he just looks like he's a better athlete than Dwayne Haskins. But I like both of them. If I had to choose right now, just based off of what I've seen from last year, I'd probably say Daniel Jones. But if you're going to ask me what I've seen online this past month, I'm going to pick Dwayne Haskins. That boy looks good. Okay? He's out there. He's launching that shit like 80 yards. He's got a lot of potential. For me, it's really 50-50. I like both of them, but I'll let you guys go ahead and discuss that further.
I mean, I'm going to go with Daniel Jones. I think we talked about this last week with Drew Lock versus Dwayne Haskins. For me, it's simple. I like Daniel Jones more than I like Drew Lock. So I picked Drew Lock over Haskins. I'm going to pick Daniel Jones over Haskins. This is no disrespect to Haskins. Like I said, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I got a lot of love for Haskins. I think he's a talented quarterback. At the time of the draft, I thought it was really stupid that they picked Jones over Haskins. That turned out to maybe be wrong. But also you got to keep in mind the Redskins have been one of the most poorly run organizations, and last year was a complete dumpster fire with the Jay Gruden firing, and just the back and forth between Keenum and Haskins and Keenum. So, I think Haskins can still turn it around. I still think he has nowhere to go but up. But if I'm just judging this based off of right now who I would rather want, I'm going to go with Daniel Jones for most of the reasons that you already discussed.
All right.
I really like both of these guys. I think they both have a lot of potential. I think one thing we're going to see in the coming years, I think last year's quarterback class was really slept on. Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock, as you mentioned, those are the 3 guys that are all going to be starters this year. And I think all have potential, and, the teams around them are starting to build for them to set up to have good seasons and, compete. So I definitely think they're slept on. But if I had to choose between one of the two, I would probably go with Daniel Jones right now too. I do think Dwayne Haskins has done a lot this offseason. I've seen videos of him throwing the ball and, looking a lot better than last year. I've also heard he's lost quite a bit of weight. But I just think what Daniel Jones brought to the game last year, he looks like he's a year or two out from being, a top quarterback in the league. So I don't think the Giants reached to 8 at all. I think they might have gotten the best quarterback in the draft. But, we'll come to see what happens with Kyler. And I don't know who else was drafted before him. I know somebody was drafted at 3 or 4. I don't remember who, though.
No, I'm pretty sure Daniel Jones was the first quarterback picked, I believe.
No, Kyler was 1. But
that's right. Yeah, Kyler. Oh, my gosh.
I swear there was someone between Kyler and Daniel Jones, but I don't remember. But either way, I would take Daniel Jones right now. I don't think it was a reach. I think he's a really good quarterback, and he definitely has potential to be the best out of the class.
One thing that I should mention as well is that in those 13 games, which was pretty impressive, is that Daniel Jones threw 24 touchdowns. And in Dwayne Haskins' 9 games, he only threw 7. So, like I said, there is a lack of talent. Even though the Giants were shit, Washington was also really bad. And Haskins obviously doesn't have the benefit of having someone like Saquon Barkley behind him. So I think when you throw in the improved offensive line and then with Saquon, Daniel Jones really can be a top quarterback pretty soon. It's just got to, you just got to put it together, man. But yeah, I like where he's going. And I think after hearing you guys talk more and looking back at these numbers again, I'm definitely probably 60-40 Daniel Jones.
Yeah. I'm not against Daniel or Dwayne Haskins at all, man. I mean, when the stuff that happens to like rookie quarterbacks, when you keep yanking them in and out of the games and you keep going back and forth with firing coaches. I mean, just as an example of this, we've all seen Alex Smith have a pretty decent career, but I don't think people realize how rough it was at the start. Like his rookie year, I'm looking at the stats right now. Alex Smith went back and forth. This is when we had Mike Nolan as the coach, and Alex Smith started, and then he got yanked, and then he got put back in. Very similar to what happened to Haskins. And that year, he had a 50% completion rate, 1 touchdown, and 11 interceptions. Oh, so if you were to take that and judge Alex Smith just on that first year, obviously that's bust written all over it. But clearly, when stability came around, a better head coach came around, he turned his career around and is a decent Pro Bowl level quarterback. So, I think Dwayne Haskins can do the same thing. I loved what he did at Ohio State, but, I think Daniel Jones, we saw it from the preseason. Like, he just passed the eye test almost instantly. Like, when he started to throw the ball around, it was like, oh, my God, this kid can sling it, So it's a very slim margin for me as well, but I'm going to take Daniel Jones.
On a side note, I want to say that I miss those really crappy 49ers teams. It was very nice as a Dolphins fan to not be surrounded by fans that are happy with their franchises, because at that time too the Raiders were also terrible. So whenever anybody would talk shit on my Dolphins, I would say, okay, but you're a Niner fan, you're a Raider fan, what the hell, you got more, like, you can't say anything. But times have changed. So I just wanted to say I miss when the Niners were terrible, but I appreciate them, and I think they're going to do well because head in the right direction. And I agree. I know Alex Smith in that stretch too had a lot of different offensive coordinators.
Yes.
And I hope that doesn't happen to Dwayne Haskins. We've definitely seen how that can end up. I like, for example, Baker Mayfield, I think gets a lot of hate, but people don't realize that he's had already 3 different offensive coordinators. And I just can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah.
The NFL is already hard enough, but when you don't have stability, that can be detrimental to your career, no matter how much talent that you have.
Straight up.
So moving on, just to keep things rolling, wanted to get into the biggest comparison, one that the national sports media talks about all the time, and that is Wentz versus Dak. Okay, we have a quarterback competition between 2 top quarterbacks in the league in this division. We have one quarterback who has all the potential in the world, just keeps getting injured. And then we have a quarterback who shows us week after week how solid he is, but yet still just can't win those big games. I don't know what it is. Dak can sometimes have a week where he looks top 3. And I don't know if that's because of the weapons that they have or what. But then for some reason, they can just never put it together as a team. There's usually like a late game interception that he throws, or someone fumbles the ball. And it just seems like the Cowboys always seem to get in their own way. And hopefully Dak this year can finally get away from that. Because as you've seen, it's really, I think, hurt. Not obviously it's hurt him. Like, I can imagine your confidence is lower because of that. And then also you're not getting paid because of that, because of those inconsistencies. I bet you if they win that division last year and it wasn't a team that was 9-7, let's say they were 11-5, contract would be given to Dak on a shiny plate. But because of these inconsistencies, even though he was putting up numbers like a top 5 quarterback last year, he just, for some reason, cannot, like right when you see with Wentz, his team can be trash around him, but he can still keep them in games single-handedly. He can throw the team on his back in big situations and help win the game. Whereas with Dak, I don't necessarily see that as much, and it really boggles my mind. I don't know how to think about Dak sometimes. But when you look at the numbers from last year, like I said, Dak was putting up top 5 numbers. Like, it was insane. But are we seeing someone who is potentially going to be a top 5 quarterback, or are we just seeing someone put up numbers like a Jameis Winston? So I'll let you guys go ahead and talk about that.
Man, I agree with you on Dak. I ping pong so much with him. I think at the end of the day, quarterback talent these days is so scarce that I think you almost have to pay him and you have to keep him.
Yeah.
And I used to be banging the table about, no, Dak is overrated. Don't pay him. Don't do it. But I mean, last year really swayed my opinion on him. I think, like you said, he put up top 5 numbers and he really just started slinging that thing. He was throwing downfield, making really difficult throws. Obviously, he still had some down moments as well, but in this current league and this market, I think he is top 10 as a quarterback. I think he's up there.
Yeah.
Not necessarily I'm not trying to say that he's elite or he should be an all-pro or a Pro Bowler even, but I think they have to pay him. I think they have to keep him. I just think he's too good not to. To answer your question, though, as Dak or Wentz, I think it's Wentz 100%. The only argument I think you can make is that Dak wins those head-to-head matchups more, and Dak is just available more often than Wentz is. I think the injury things with Wentz, they really do concern me, no doubt. But, I mean, going back to 2017, I mean, like I said earlier, he was the runaway MVP. I think he still should have been the MVP. He was putting up ridiculous numbers, and he was just performing week in and week out. I mean, he tore his ACL, and the next play he came in for a 2-point conversion and converted it. So, this guy's tough. He tries his best.
Should have gave him the MVP just off of that.
No doubt. Yeah, no cap. Seriously. I mean, look, I like Tom Brady. He's cool, but he should not have been the MVP that year. Like, no, there's no question in my mind. But anyway, that was a tangent. But, yeah, I think it's really close between the two because of that. But if I were to know one game, I only get them for one game, they're healthy for that one game, I think I'm taking Wentz, and I don't think it's close, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, with Dak, I think he kind of has the Phillip Rivers gene, where you get into that last 5 minutes of the game, and it's just like, what happened? I can't throw the ball anymore. I can't see the jerseys of the teams. Like, and we've seen that with Phillip Rivers his whole career. Playoffs, fourth quarters, and I think Dak has that gene, and it's unfortunate. Now, one thing I will say with Dak is I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback. But in the next 5 years, if he stays with the Cowboys after this year, I think every year he will put up top 5 numbers. It's more of what they have around him than it is him himself. But one thing I do want to say, I don't want to count him out yet. All of those fourth quarter fall downs and playoff fails have come behind Jason Garrett. So maybe seeing him behind Mike McCarthy, who I don't love, but I mean, he's had some success in the playoffs. So,
He won a Super Bowl, no big deal.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, outside of that season, they really didn't have a ton of success. They had those games with the Cardinals, which were really good games, but they came out on the losing side on both of those, I think. So,
speaking of that, do you remember the famous clip when I think Aaron Rodgers, like, he got smacked and fumbled, and they lost that game one of the games to the Cardinals, and McCarthy just dropped to his knees. He just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and then they lost that one where Larry Fitzgerald just went off in overtime and had like the 80-yard
play.
catch. Yeah,
after
he broke
Aaron
like
Rodgers
4 tackles.
Pulled
the
two Hail Marys.
Yeah.
2 Hail Marys out his ass to a receiver with the last name Janis.
Who never, like, I don't even know if he ever caught another pass.
Bro, I'm telling you, I'm not even going to get on a tangent about the Packers, okay?
Shout out to Jeff Daniels.
But yes, yeah, I'm excited to see what Dak can do with a new coach potentially, but you can clearly see I'm not too high on McCarthy either.
Yeah, but in the conversation of Dak or Wentz, I would definitely take Wentz. There's no doubt in my mind. Wentz can do something special with the ball. He's not got the Phillip Rivers gene. He's kind of got like the Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes gene, where I can see him putting the ball in places where, 95% of NFL quarterbacks cannot. So I definitely see him with that. So I would definitely take Wentz any day of the week, injuries and all.
Do you think the Eagles should go the route of getting a bunch of weapons for their offense like the Cowboys have? Or do you think, because I would say one thing that hurts Dak, right, is that he does have this great offense. So the reason why he's not getting paid is because he's got such a great team around him and they're not winning. Whereas with Wentz, he's still going to get paid because he's playing well even with a shit team. So it's one of those things to me where I think the Eagles, they need to stay like building up their defense and don't be like the Packers and just let Wentz be Wentz. If you're going to, they got him a first round wide receiver and I think they should be good for a while. Just build up that defense. But yeah, I'm picking Wentz all day. That's my boy.
Yeah.
Should have won that MVP.
100%.
No cap.
Now, I think we can head into a different league. A league that is going to be starting the soonest, hopefully. And we're going to be talking about that. And that is the NBA in Orlando, Florida, where cases are just skyrocketing, going up so high that they look incredibly stupid. And I enjoy every second of it because I'm not even going to talk about the governor, but just okay.
I'm gonna talk about the governor.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
But the biggest thing I did want to talk about though is we are seeing more players now testing positive. And I was watching a clip of Damian Lillard talking about how he actually doesn't trust any of the other players to stay in quarantine. He doesn't trust. And then Stephen A. Right talking about the same concern that Damian Lillard had. These dudes are going to be in a hotel room for a month, 2 months. They need to spray a load, bro. It is just human science. We're talking also about some of the most in shape men, right? They are healthy men that need to just blow off a couple loads, man. These are horny men. And you can't tell me that they're not.
Why are you turning this podcast into this?
You need to stop it.
This is a very big concern that I know the players are having, people in the media are having, and I know for damn sure the teams are having and the league are having. They're going to have to close this damn thing up like it's a military base. And I don't know how it's going to work out. I'm frankly a little scared for the restart, especially with just before we hopped on getting news that the Bucks now potentially have some players that have it. And if it's someone big like Giannis, Middleton, really, if it's any of those two, they're done, in my opinion. I mean, Giannis can probably, for the first 8 games, survive without someone like Middleton. But I think after that, Bucks are one of those teams that have a very solid team, yes. But if it's anybody important, it really knocks them down a couple notches. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think about what's going on with the NBA.
So, I mean, I think the bubble and the concept that they've come up with is pretty foolproof. I mean, even Dr. Fauci has said he thinks this can work. Where I see the cracks in it is that the workers they're going to have at Disney World, like the chefs, the trainers, the people who are coming from outside who live in the area, they don't have to follow the same restrictions that the players themselves do. So that's where I foresee a problem happening, is that whether it's, the janitors or it's the chefs or any of these other essential workers that we have, if they bring in COVID, that's where the problem is going to come from. And I'm thinking about this more and more. I actually did some research myself. The NBA pushed really hard to keep regular season games on the docket for this. And I was always thinking, why does that matter? It's not going to change much. Bring the 16 playoff teams that are currently there and just start the playoffs right away. So I'm actually looking at it, and the local TV deals that a lot of these companies have with NBA teams, they have a minimum requirement of 70 games for the league to get the revenue that they agreed to. Mm-hmm. And as it currently stands, most of these teams are at 63 games, 64 games. And we always talk about, why is it 8 games? Why is it 8 regular season games? I think they want 8 regular season games. Even if they know full and well it's going to get canceled because of COVID, they want to hit that 70-game mark no matter what to get that revenue. And, the more and more I think about it, like, yes, I want to see basketball so bad. I would love to see some NBA basketball, but the league going forward with this to meet their TV deal requirements, I just don't think you can put a price, even if it's just one person who gets it and unfortunately passes away. I just don't think it's worth it for basketball this year, and I think it's unfortunate. But, I hope that all things break well, no one permeates that bubble and gets COVID in there. But like you said, Jordan, these are obviously young, rich men. I don't know how apt they're going to be to follow the quarantine laws, so I don't know. I'm skeptical, but I would love to see NBA basketball. I'd love to see any sports league successfully navigate this, because as of yet, I guess the UFC is the only league that's been able to continue. Obviously, which is apples to oranges when you compare it to team sports and the safety protocols you need for that. So hopefully they can work something out, but I'm skeptical as of right now.
Do you know if they can bring their families? Because I know that was one thing that Stephen A. was talking about. Are they able to?
So yes and no. They would be able to bring their families starting with the conference finals teams. At that point, teams are allowed to fly their families out. So not every team would have access to that. Only 4 teams would. And that would be a period of 1.5 to 2 months before they can see their families.
Like, you're going to expect a testosterone freak, like the Greek freak, to hold that in to the conference finals, bro? We already know he's been talking about he's a freak in the sheets.
Listen, man, chefs, I have a lot of respect for the sex workers out there, man. I don't see why they can't be essential workers as well in this bubble. Why not?
I'm trying to see Kawhi throwing money with that New Balance shirt on in the club.
One of the funniest moments. Shout out to Kawhi, man. Shout out to Kawhi. In the strip club with New Balances on. Who would have thought? But what do you think, Ethan?
I think problem number 1 was choosing Orlando, Florida for the restart. I know there was a lot of discussion of where they were going to go, and just as the other leagues have kind of sat back and watched, and I know like NHL hasn't announced yet where they're planning their hub cities. I heard with baseball, they were planning on using the spring training facilities, but with what's happening in Florida, I think they're kind of backing off and looking at Arizona and then maybe another, East Coast facility where they're not going to run into weather issues. But yeah, I definitely think picking Florida was the number 1 issue. I agree. There was no way ever that all these players were going to stay inside and actually quarantine. It's just not going to happen. It's unrealistic. I mean, we have guys in the NBA in these playoffs that are 19, 20 years old, 21. You can't expect them to be following this. And, we're going to take them and put them in probably the worst place possible with, the highest case spike right now and the most ignorant. I was just trying to find a way to say it the right way without being offensive, but the most ignorant probably governor and senator and just people doing the wrong things in that state. So I think
if you're a fan of DeSantis, you probably just shouldn't tune in to the podcast.
Yeah.
Wish you well, but it's probably not for you.
No, definitely not. And I don't want to get too political, but I definitely think picking Florida was the worst decision. I just saw that they put the bottom 8 teams in Chicago. If they had the facilities there, I really don't know why they didn't choose Chicago. Cases have been at least as far as I know, and I have family that live out there, but cases have been in a consistent decline. They've actually been opening back up with some success, unlike, California or Florida or Texas. We've all been really struggling, but we've seen, New York and some of those East Coast states open slowly and have some success. So I don't know why they made the decision they did. It would have been nice to see maybe New York with all the basketball history it has, or Chicago as well.
Hot spot.
But, you're going Orlando, Florida. I think, bad decision, number one, and I think it's gonna spiral it all off. I think one thing that is gonna benefit from it is all the other leagues are gonna see that we can't have sports in Florida. We need to have them somewhere else. Florida and Texas and probably California as well just aren't the place for it right now.
Yeah, I wish they would not have rewarded Florida's stupid decision making with promising to have it there, because I know that was really one of the biggest factors for why they were reopening so early in comparison to other states, is that they wanted that business from the sports leagues. And it's
really backfired. It's
really backfired, and really, like, all it takes is for one player to go clap one of them custodians, and now COVID is spread throughout the whole team.
Really the custodian, bro. Not some girl at the club. Not he went out to the bar and met like a couple ladies that are gonna go back with him, but the fucking custodian, bro.
Bro, let me tell you something.
All right, no, we're not doing this.
Know how to clap, bro.
Move on to the next topic.
All right.
Shout out to custodians, man.
Yes.
Yeah, I
used to be a custodian, bro. I know how it goes, okay? I'm just saying. Minor League Baseball has been canceled for this season. And in a move that is very unsurprising, because, damn, the MLB couldn't even figure it out. They have now. But I think it is a good move that Minor League is going to be canceled for the season, particularly in the fact that it is so many leagues and so many players. I'm talking with leagues, AAA, AA, single A. You have all of these fucking people that have to travel throughout the country. So I think it will eliminate risk of spreading it further, because you definitely don't want that with how many people are in these organizations. Because, we're not talking just the players. There's the coaches, there's the training staffs, there's the doctors, there's the people that have to transport them. So I think it is nice from the standpoint of, let's stop having everybody move around so much, and being able to have one solid bubble for the leagues, in my opinion, is just not worth it for minor league baseball. I could see it maybe being worth it for like a AAA, but the lower ones, man, it's just not worth it. Let's go shout all the custodians out. But I kind of wanted to touch on why I think that the way the MLB and specifically the owners have handled this with the minor league is just terrible. According to New York Times, minor league teams earned an average of $70,000 in gross revenue per home game, which is about $5.4 million per year. And it says most of that money went to operating expenses, including paying employees. Each team averages 21 full-timers and 200 seasonal workers. And then they have to pay rent on the stadiums, and teams pay a combined $65 million annually. So this is a combined $65 million annually. And the MLB teams, right, they're the ones that have to pay for the minor league players and their coaches and their salaries. So when you look at rent being a combined $65 million for all of the teams,
that's across 6 leagues.
Yeah, six leagues. And then you have you already know the minor league players, they make very low salaries, right? Some of the lower end players in the lower leagues, they're getting paid $30,000 a year. So for them to, the owners to be struggling to want, like they're really forcing all the minor league players to come together, and even some of the MLB players are having to speak out about it, but they're not even paying they didn't want to pay the minor league players, and they are now. But the fact that they really put up a struggle with it makes me upset. And with everything that went on with MLB, it's starting to make me look at the MLB in a different light, because not only were they hurting their own players, but they were unwilling to pay very minimal salaries in comparison to what some of those billionaires have in the bank. Like, let's say that you had to do like 10 mil for the whole year. You just had to drop 10 mil into the minor league players and show appreciation for what they do. That is chump change to somebody who's worth 3 bill, 5 bill, 10 bill. So that shit infuriates me, and has definitely made me look at the MLB a little bit differently. What do you guys think?
F the MLB, man. I'm pretty fed up with them. Like you said, I mean, I'm not as familiar with baseball as I am the other sports leagues, but correct me if I'm wrong. The minor leagues are essentially the backbone of the league itself, and the players and the talent pool. So,
100%.
I mean, that the MLB really is shooting themselves in the foot with this. I mean, this is the next generation of players. It might even be the current generation of players for some of these teams. And I'm just looking at what a regular MLB season looks like versus what we're going to get, which is a 60-game season. And I mean, you're talking about you would sacrifice everything for a 60-game season and no minors, as opposed to just shuttering it, and just waiting a year, losing a year, which it's not even new to baseball. I mean, we had right in the 90s, there was a lockout year where it was played with replacement players, right? If I'm not mistaken. And, I think the MLB showed its colors. I don't think they're as player friendly as leagues such as, basketball or even as football. And
NFL's not even that player friendly either.
No, just by comparison,
Yeah.
And I just think the MLB in general has mismanaged their league, their talent pool, their negotiation, just social media, the whole age in general. I think MLB's missed the mark, and I think this is a shame for the players. I think it's a shame for the teams, and I just wish it didn't have to be this way.
And I'm really tired of it being normal for the owners of, and I'm talking every sports team, that they feel as if they never have to take a loss. Sorry,
Right.
we're in a pandemic. You have billions of dollars. You should be able to have a loss. If you own a business, you should be able to have an emergency fund, or just have a plan in place, have
Yeah.
funds in place for you taking a loss. That's what you have to do as a business owner. So it's very frustrating that every single owner of every team in every sports professional league, they just feel as if they never have to take a loss. It makes me mad every day.
The billionaire mindset, they're profiting off of the exploitation of minor league talent, especially in the case of baseball. So it's a shame.
What do you think, Ethan?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about this last week. It didn't really come as a surprise to me. MLB's been mishandling the minor leagues forever. But in terms of the game, I think this is going to be interesting and play a big effect, because the minor leagues are extremely important to player development, top prospects. You have guys that are 17, 18 from international deals. They're not ready to be in the MLB, but now, this year, and from what I've heard, they're expanding the rosters from 25 to 40 for the whole year. So they'll be able to, have a couple prospects on the team that are just going to be there mostly for the experience and the practice, and then maybe play, get a couple at bats every 5 to 10 games. But I do think that it's really going to be interesting to see how it either hinders or propels the development of certain top prospects. So, that's going to be a big thing I'm going to be watching out for.
Is the MLB allowing the teams to have some of those AAA players come? Like, are they allowing more roster spots?
So the way it works is basically, when you go into spring training, you have a pool of 60 players that you're allowed to take with you, period. And they're still allowing just the 60. But that's like 60, you have 20 people that are non-roster invitees. That's what they're called. They're non-roster invitees. So, you can invite them, but if you want to sign them after spring training, you have to sign them to a completely different deal. Because they're either people on minor league deals, prospects that haven't been signed to a deal yet, they're still in their rookie contracts in the minors, or, whatever it may be. So now we're going to have these 60 spots, and then instead of cutting that 60 down to 25, they're cutting that 60 down to 40. So I think, 5 of those 15 extra spots are going to be used on prospects that they need to get reps, that they need to get the experience that they're not getting in double or triple or even single A at the time. Because it really is going to hurt first-round picks this year. I mean, think about a top 3 pick coming out of high school, hasn't played college baseball, hasn't played professionally. This is a whole year where they just don't get to develop because, minor league season is canceled. And then who knows what's going to happen after the season, because we have the CBA next year. And, this whole thing with baseball, the cheating, the players and the owners, they can't come together. It's really going to hurt the CBA next year. And I really think, we might see another lockout, and we might not get replacement players this time. So it's going to be interesting to see, I think. And then another thing with that, I think that is really sad to me, and I've seen a lot about it, is the talk with the canceling of the minor league season has the MLB talking about shutting down about 60 minor league teams across the bottom 3 levels. And I think they started making the move towards that this year, because they cut the draft down from, it used to be some like 60, 40 rounds, somewhere in there. Like, it was a lot. And now I think this year it was 5 rounds. So I think...
Well, that's a big drop-off. Jeez.
Yeah, huge. I mean, it was huge. And, they said it was because of COVID, but, I don't know how those two really go hand in hand, because nobody was really together for the draft, and you could have still had 10 or 20 rounds, and, it wouldn't have made that big of a difference. But I do think, that's really going to start hurting the game, because you're going to get a lot less players drafted, and then they're going to be looking for different avenues to play. So now we're going to have players coming out of college. Well, I didn't get drafted in those 5 rounds. Well, it's not even that the money from the MLB isn't going to be enough. I'm just so pissed off that I didn't get picked that I'm going to go play for Korean baseball. Or
do you see them potentially getting rid of some of the minor leagues?
I think with the talk right now of them getting rid of 60 minor league teams, I think they're going to probably completely move to eradicate 2 or 3 of the minor leagues, which it sucks for some of these teams. Like, I know when I was out in college in Nebraska, one of the small towns a couple hours from us had a single A minor league team, and it was a town of 8,000 people, but the stadium sat 12,000, and they'd sell out every night because people would come from an hour away to come watch the baseball games. And for that town, that's a lot of their revenue.
Yeah.
A lot of their tax money, a lot of everything that they need there. And, you take that team out of there, well, that's really going to hurt their economic system in that town. So, I really feel for the minor league teams that might be getting cut out. And, I hope it doesn't happen. But as we've seen with the past, these major league owners are really greedy, and they're just trying to get as much money as they can. I mean, it really, you pulled out the cost. It doesn't cost much to keep those minor league teams in order. And a lot of the young players need that time to develop and play with, lesser talent as they're 17, 18. We get prospects starting signed at 15, international prospects. So it's definitely, it's tough. I think it's the wrong move, but I think in the sense of player health, it is keeping everybody safe. But, maybe they could have kept 2 leagues open just for the sake of player development and the game of baseball.
One thing that I forgot to mention, why I was so upset with the fact that the owners just won't pay those losses, is that in the same article that I was looking at, it was saying that because the minor league teams are going to be struggling, that they were actually looking to seek federal and local aid. And that was another reason why I was very upset, because I think if the owners have the money to do that, to pay for it, why the hell should whether it's our federal tax money, and especially in say like you were talking about Nebraska, that shouldn't be put on the Nebraskans that are right there. Hell
Mm-hmm.
no. Especially when you got people with so much money. Like, it's crazy to me. And I can understand how, especially in a place like Nebraska, right, where you don't have professional teams. I know just being here in Sacramento where we don't have a baseball team, but we have the River Cats. You go to those games, and that's a AAA team, and it's sold out quite frequently. People really like the team here. So I could see how in Nebraska and other small towns where they do have a team, that would be very sad because it means a lot here in Sacramento, and we still have the Kings. We still got soccer, right? So yeah, that'll be sad to see, but we'll see how it all plays out. Maybe there can be, maybe this can be a blessing in disguise in some sorts, and maybe another rich, like someone like McMahon wants to come in and throw in a bunch of money into a league where we have not yet pros, but people who could develop into that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, it is very sad, and hope for the best. And Ethan, I will let you lead this next one. We'll probably run through these next two pretty quickly as we're heading on to an hour and a half. But again, if you are listening and you made it this far, thank you. I just want to do a reminder that Saquon Barkley is the thickest man on earth. Please show me another man as thick as him. So, Ethan, go ahead and tell us about the big UFC news.
All right. So it was announced, I think, yesterday afternoon, but Brett Burns posted he was for UFC 251. Just so I'll give the background first. UFC 251 is coming up this next Saturday. It's going to be the first fight on Fight Island. There's 3 title fights. It's a huge event. It's probably going to be our biggest sporting event since everything happened in March. Pay-per-view, all that good stuff. So on yesterday, Brett Burns announced on Twitter and Instagram that he's sick. I didn't see if it was confirmed yet or not, if he had COVID, but I think just with the risk, even if he was just had a cold, I don't think they're going to run the risk, even if they tested him, to put him through next week. As a fighter and someone who has prepped 6 months for a fight, coming down with just a plain cold the week before can really affect, what's going on in your fight. So they pulled him out. The big news, and I'm really excited about it, is they put Jorge Masvidal in his place to fight Kamaru Usman. Masvidal is a top 5 fighter in, I think they are welterweight. Yeah, welterweight. So he's definitely a top 5 fighter in welterweight. He's fought for a belt before. He's an absolute badass. I love Kamaru Usman too. Beat the shit out of Colby Covington a couple months ago. Love that. Fuck that guy, Colby Covington. But yeah, it's going to be a really good fight. And then, like I said, there's 3 other title fights on that card. You got Max Holloway on there. Jose Aldo, Peter Yan. Really good fight. So I'll definitely be tuning in next Saturday. And it's the first fight on Fight Island. So we're going to see how that goes.
And all the fights will be on Fight Island, correct?
Yes, all the prelims, everything. And then I think from here moving forward, the rest of the fights are on Fight Island. I don't think they'll be using the Las Vegas headquarters anymore.
I know they had talked about doing international fighters on Fight Island, and then if they're American, they do it in Vegas. Do you know anything about that?
I know they were getting some of the international fighters into Vegas. But as far as I know, I think they are just moving forward with Fight Island now, just for the safety of everybody. So I'm looking right now, they have it up to August 1st where they have announced the dates. So all of July is in Fight Island, all the fights in July.
And I want to also say too, speaking of the UFC and COVID and everything that's going on, everybody that was giving shit to Khabib, their ass, bro, because that dude just lost his dad to COVID, and that shit's really sad. And I'm looking forward to seeing him again. I was rooting for Conor in that fight, but you can't even deny that Khabib, he's a beast. He rightfully is at the top right now. and it's very unfortunate what happened, and hopefully he can bounce back from this. But yeah, if anybody that was, getting on anybody, any athlete that doesn't feel comfortable, we've seen that with Mike Trout this past week. People were getting on him because he was potentially saying that he might sit out a couple games because he's about to have a kid. So, I think and it's going to kind of go into what we're going to talk about next, but we get caught up too much into what we think that these players should be and not really care about who they are. And at the end of the day, these people are people just like you and me, and they're going to have the same concerns that we do. So, RIP to Khabib's dad, and hope for the best and hope he can come back. But, I think we should respect if the players or, these athletes, they want to take their time. Did you guys want to expand on UFC at all anymore?
No, I think I'm good. That's all I really had. Looking forward to UFC 251.
Yep, nothing for me. I'm glad that there's sports leagues that are able to navigate this, and the UFC is probably the prime example of that. So it's awesome to see. Good to have some live sports.
Definitely. And then speaking on, just getting on athletes for, just through the media, through social media. We watched a clip, all three of us, of Kyrie talking about how we do Kyrie Irving, the point guard for the Brooklyn Nets. He's always in the media. He's always one of those guys that gets shitted on. Sometimes rightfully so. Don't tell me the earth is flat. But, maybe like he was saying, he could have been misquoted when he was talking about that. We don't really know. Everybody, I've done this. You guys have done this. Everybody in sports media has done this. Everybody in media, whether we're talking about celebrities, it doesn't really matter. Anybody. We tend to jump to conclusions, and I could understand how that would affect somebody. They're people just like us, like I was talking about, and some people are going to be able to handle that better. But yeah, man, it's just Kyrie, when I watch him play, he's definitely one of my favorite players, and you could go on for a while about things that he's done off the court. And it's not even like he's doing anything bad. It's just that sometimes he can cause a distraction. But then a part of me likes to think that, maybe he isn't like that, and it's just the media looking for something to talk about with one of the biggest players. And because he's not like, he's not considered to be normal in comparison to some of the other star players. He's not so diplomatic, I guess you could say. So I don't know. I like Kyrie, and I think we do got to think about a lot of the time that we don't know these people individually, and we can get caught up in the moment sometimes, and we do got to think about how it affects them as people.
Yeah, definitely. I think the clip in question was Kyrie talking to some reporters, and they were just having an open conversation. This is obviously a past clip.
Yeah.
And Kyrie was basically saying that, I commonly get criticized for going through mood swings. I'm a human being. Human beings have mood swings. That's part of the human experience. And I wasn't expecting that from Kyrie Irving. I mean, he is very enigmatic, of course, and he's obviously in the news frequently for either he's a distraction to the team or he's, having mood swings, and that typically is a story. And I thought what he said was really true. I mean, these guys are human beings, and they just happen to do a job where their job is to entertain us by playing sports. But that doesn't mean that they're not humans. It doesn't mean they can't react to things the way that they're supposed to react to things, or they're not different. So I thought that was really nice to see from Kyrie, and he clearly, he has some opinions. Definitely, like Jordan said, don't tell me the earth is flat, but he's a very talented basketball player, and he is also a human being with emotions and opinions. And I think that is something that we should recognize, as opposed to seeing these sports figures as, celebrities or as international icons. They're human beings just like us, and they have their own thoughts. So agree with everything you said.
Phil, did you turn on a fan?
Did I? No. The fan's been on I had to switch out from the AirPods. The AirPods died on me.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's just a switch in mic. It's just we can hear like something in the back. It's not too big of a deal.
Let me fix that for you.
Yeah, I think I say it a lot. I think, a lot of times we just forget these players are just people like us. And a lot of times I like to think about, like maybe someone who's 18, 19, 20 years old coming into the league and has this big spotlight on him. Like, I think about LeBron when he came into the league. I can't imagine what that was like. Could you imagine having to go through that, having the
Yeah.
spotlight on you the whole time, not being able to escape an interview? You walk out, everybody knows who you are everywhere you go. I mean, it takes a lot to be able to handle that, and it definitely takes a toll on your mental health. And I think, us as fans, we often just get caught in the game and the plays, and we think of players more as like objects in like a video game, like we're playing My GM or something. We think of it more like that than we do of actually thinking of them as actual people with families and ideas, opinions, emotions, all of that stuff that comes with being just a person. So I really like Kyrie speaking out, and I think we are seeing more and more players do that, and I think it's a trend that needs to happen. I think the media and I think fans need to lay off a little, and if a player needs to take a couple games off for mental health, a player needs to take a couple games off for mental health, or if a player is having a problem with someone else in the locker room, they are, and that's for them to deal with. It's not for us to make comments and give our opinions on unless it's asked of us.
Yeah, and talking about this reminded me of what went on with Kevin Love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually kind of it's made me think, like, why is there such a big difference in the way? Because I know Kevin Love kind of got hate in the beginning because people thought he was being dramatic. But I think now people are looking at him and Kyrie totally differently, even though they might have been, I don't know them personally and what they went through, but kind of what was going on with the mental health, right? It's kind of similar. So I don't know why Kyrie gets so much of the hate. And I know the flat earth comments have been kicking his ass for, a couple of years now. But, who knows if he was even serious? We don't know that. And, like Ethan was talking about with LeBron having to have that immense pressure at a young age and how well he's been able to handle it. And I think we have to realize, too, that some people just are built differently, because you can look at someone like KD and Kawhi. They're not going to be outspoken and media friendly like LeBron is. And I think that needs to be normalized as something that's okay, because we can look at someone like Marshawn Lynch, who just refused to speak to the media and everybody loves it. But yet when someone like Kyrie or KD does it, it's a bad thing. So I would like to see mental health become more of a talking point, because especially with social media, we don't understand, man, the pressure that these players go through. I can't even imagine and I've been really impressed, and why I think Zion's going to be the next superstar in the league is because of how well he's handled that pressure, because we haven't really seen an athlete like him since LeBron. A lot of people talk about that. And hopefully he's able to handle it. But, if players like Kyrie can't come out and talk about this kind of stuff, or players like Kevin Love can't come out and talk about this stuff, then it'll negatively affect the next generations to come, because I think social media and the immersion into other people's lives is just going to continue to grow from here.
I mean, can you imagine just logging onto Twitter and searching up your name and seeing, 4,000 tweets of random people you've never met, tweeting, either good things or bad things about you, and sometimes it gets pretty, deep into those. It gets beyond the game. People get so caught up in the game, they start talking about other stuff, or, I think we see it in almost all the sports, but I know it's been really prevalent in soccer the last couple of years. Racism going on. That's across all sports. And, you log on to that, that stuff takes a toll on your mind. So I can't even imagine what the players go through. I respect the hell out of every professional sports player. I know they get paid a lot, but a lot of people don't understand and don't really think about they have very hard jobs. And, and their jobs are very demanding too. No professional sports player isn't putting 10 plus hours of work a day on their craft. I mean, it just does. You don't make it to that level if you're not doing that. So
I mean, and every single one of us has bad days at work, but when one of those guys has a bad day at work, not only does everybody see it live, yeah, everybody sees it live, and you're psychoanalyzed like you're a bad person because you had a bad day at work. You know,
Yeah.
so
And
just
it's always that thing too where it's like you don't know until it happens to you. And I hate to admit it, but one of those things that happened was we actually went to school with Nick Madrigal, who is going to be one of the up and coming MLB players. And the big like realization that I had of this was his brother Tyler, who me and Phil, I don't know about you, Ethan, but we knew him pretty well when we were younger, and one of the nicest guys I've met. And I
Great
would
guy.
see, and I seen one of the MLB teams. I really can't remember off the top of my head, but they signed him to join their minor league system. And the things that people were saying about Tyler, when I know how good of a person he is, like that really opened my eyes to people really just speak on shit they don't know about. So, I could kind of see it being, there's going to be some players like Kawhi who just aren't going to care, but not everybody's going to be like that, right? He's portrayed as the Terminator for a reason. So yeah, we got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Are we good?
Hot takes?
Oh, hot take.
oh boy.
Hot
I
take
will go.
minutes.
I will go ahead and start. We talked about the NFC East today, and we talked a little bit about Dak Prescott and that offense he has around him. I spoke on him not being a top 5 quarterback, but putting on top 5 numbers. So my prediction this year for them, I see Dak exceeding 4,800 yards. I see him throwing 40-plus touchdowns, less than 20 interceptions.
40?
I see him being no.
40?
35 plus. I
Okay.
see him being a top 3 MVP candidate, but I see the Cowboys going 9-7.
Top 3 MVP candidate at 9-7? No.
Hey, it's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a possibility. I can't name one off the top of my head, but
I just see him putting up ridiculous numbers the whole year. I'm drafting him in fantasy for sure. If he's available by round 6, that's on me, baby.
I mean, there'd be no excuse for him not to put up numbers like that, right?
Yeah, that offense is ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's up there with the Bucks. And the Bucks are like that receiving core plus then you throw in Gronk and you throw in Brady and their running back sucks and their offensive line isn't that good. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I respect that. I mean, I wouldn't personally say that's like too much of a hot take, but it's definitely got a little sizzle there because a lot of people don't like him,
Little sizzle.
What about you? You got a hot take?
No, you go first, man. I'm still cooking my hot take up here in the oven.
My hot take for the day, I'm gonna go NBA. And I'm going to say that I don't believe the Bucks are going to be making the finals, and I could actually seeing it be either the Sixers or the Raptors. And I could see the Sixers because we talk every single year about how talented they are as a team. They have one of the best duos in Ben Simmons and in Joel Embiid. The biggest thing with Joel Embiid has been his health. With this break, I think a lot of people aren't talking about how this will benefit a player like Embiid, who's already one of the most dominant when he's dialed in, as it is. And then you throw on, I mean, I sometimes have no hope in Ben Simmons because I shoot better than him, and that should not be a thing. Okay, I am 5'11", over 200 pounds since this quarantine. Super unathletic in comparison to somebody like Ben Simmons, but yet, bro, I got that splash, bro. Okay.
Stop it.
Stop
it.
If I was in a 3-point contest with Ben Simmons, I would put down $20 that I would win. Okay.
That's not a bad bet.
But
Not a bad bet.
anyways, they have a solid team. I wouldn't say it's one of the most talented in the league, but when you have Embiid and Simmons on the same team with that rest, it is something to take into huge consideration that they could really do something. And then the Raptors, just as a whole, I love Nick Nurse as the coach. He just seems to have everybody just work so smoothly in that system. It's sometimes almost flawless, just the way they work. And they're doing that without having Kawhi. I think with everything that's going on, I have a high belief in the teams that are well coached. I think that's like we were talking about with the NFL, right? Coaching is going to become a big factor depending on what the situation is. So I could see someone like a team like the Raptors slipping into the finals because of just how well they play as a team. And man, I love Siakam.
Raptors are heavily slept on. I agree with you. Heavily slept on.
And that is my hot take. So go ahead, Phil.
Man, I got a trio of hot takes that are all related, and I know you guys aren't going to like this one, but these all have to do with James Harden of the Houston Rockets. So my first hot take, James Harden is the third best shooting guard of all time. He should be a 3-time NBA MVP instead of a 1-time MVP.
Okay.
And his patented step back is not a travel by definition of the rule. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's travel. I think it's been proven. But
I don't think it's a travel.
But third?
Yeah, I don't think third. And I think he should have 2 MVPs, but I don't know about 3.
Let's start with
Jordan
the third.
Yeah, it's 1-2, correct?
Easily, yes.
Okay, so you're putting Dwayne Wade.
Yes, I am.
Underneath James Harden.
Yes. So let's start with the glaring thing here. Obviously, James Harden has not been very successful in the playoffs, and he has not yet gotten a ring, whereas Dwayne Wade has 3. Okay, that's huge. I won't take that away from you. I will say, however, Dwayne Wade obviously had arguably 2 situations where he was not the top dog. I know he won Finals MVP with Miami in 2006, but Shaq was the key crucial part of that team. Dwayne Wade had the better series. All due respect to him. I have him at 4th, but James Harden, we're talking about a guy, and I've said this in our group chat, I've said this to you both before. It doesn't get talked about enough how rare and how special it is to average 35 points a game in a season.
I agree.
80 games, 35 points. That is the only person other than Wilt Chamberlain to do that for a season since then has been Michael Jordan. That's it. It's Michael Jordan, it's Wilt, and it's James Harden. For you to do that as a perimeter player instead of as a post player and to do it in the modern NBA, takes a little bit of grain off of that, but it's still something that's incredible, especially with, 1, the efficiency he does it with, and 2, the volume. I mean, James Harden puts up a lot of shots, don't get me wrong. He goes to the free throw line a lot. It's a big part of his game. He shoots about 12 threes per game, but he's not a bad shooter. And these aren't catch and shoot situations. This isn't in the rhythm of an offense. This is him mostly doing isolation work, which you'd say, okay, that's not conducive to winning basketball, but it's also highly impressive for someone to get 35 points per game, doing mostly isolation work and being efficient while doing that on about, 12 3-point shots per game. I think it's
not
incredible.
Not always efficient, but for the most part efficient.
Yeah, but as an aggregate, for the most part, yeah.
What would you say is preventing James Harden from being, okay, obviously, right, it's going to be hard to be the best player in the league when you have players like LeBron and Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
But what is preventing him from being that top dog, like in the league, where you look at him and, I mean, you can look at the playoff losses, but what do you think is contributing to those playoff losses? Like, what is holding him back?
Basically, Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets offense is a gimmick for the most part. It's not. It is and it isn't, because the Warriors obviously patented and were very successful with this whole 3-point revolution offense. But I mean, we look at that 2017 team, the one that took the Warriors to 7 at full strength and almost won. The Rockets really were never built based on their own identity. They were built to combat the Warriors. Daryl Morey has even been on the record as saying this, I constructed that team solely with the intention of beating the Golden State Warriors. Since then, it's changed. Obviously, the Warriors are no longer who they were. And now it's basically, when they traded Capella at the deadline, their team is based off of not playing a center and shooting as many threes as humanly possible. And it's solely based around that. And obviously, we're in a different era of basketball where shooting the 3-point ball is probably the primary goal of each successful basketball team, but they have committed to that and contributed to an offense that I think is a gimmick. I don't think you can win a championship playing the type of basketball they are. And I understand the argument you're going to make, which is, well, they built their team like that because James Harden is their star player. But I think if you were to put James Harden under a coach that's not Mike D'Antoni and that's not Kevin McHale, such as, I don't know, for example, Greg Popovich, any of the other classic coaches in a more traditional system that still plays to his talents, I think it would be a no-brainer that he would win a championship.
Okay. I will say every time that I simulate a 2K playoffs and I'm not winning the finals, James Harden always wins it. So I got to respect that. Yes.
2K, no.
So would you say that, so you're saying that you believe the Rockets are kind of like a dark horse in the West because of that?
Yes and no. I think they're a dark horse team to make the conference finals. I think, the big question, they're the 6th seed currently. They want to stay out of 7 because if they fall to the 7th seed, they have to play the Clippers in the first round. Whereas if they stay at 6 or if they move up, they can play any of the other teams, which I think I give them a shot against any team other than the Lakers or the Clippers. Really, just my point is I think James Harden, because he kind of has a status as a meme, at first it was, he's not paying attention on defense. And then it was, he doesn't get anything done in the playoffs. I think because of his meme status, he doesn't get appreciated as much as he should. And I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying that he's the best player in the league because he's not. But I think what we're witnessing with him is a historical player, one of the best, arguably, I think pound for pound, he might even be a top 2 offensive threat of all time. To put up the numbers he does at the size he does, I just think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough. And especially the fact that last year he put up 35 points per game. That in modern NBA history, there's really not a parallel for that. So I think there should be more James Harden love. I'm not saying the criticisms against him aren't valid. They are.
Yeah.
He needs to win a championship, but I don't think it's going to happen for him with the current system in Houston. But that's my hot take for the day.
And there's been reports that he's fully bought into this small ball by losing 20 pounds. So we'll see how that all comes together. And I really appreciate Russell Westbrook as a player, but I don't know if he fits in with that. Okay, well, I know for a fact he doesn't fit in well if he is shooting a bunch of threes.
No, not at all.
I'm interested to see what, if any, adjustments will be made for the playoffs. Because like you said, they were made to beat the Warriors. Warriors are not a thing anymore, and you have to account, especially in the West, for someone like Anthony Davis. So I'm going to be really interested to see how they can compete. I would like to see them play the Clippers or the Lakers at some point and just see how well they play. Yeah, I'm interested to see Russell Westbrook too get another shot at just working with another player like James Harden.
I mean, side note too, that Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul trade hasn't aged that well. Really hasn't. I know Westbrook has really turned it around. Yeah. I mean, OKC is a 5 seed right now. Like that's ridiculous that Chris Paul and that organization, you can't stop either of them. It's a nice story.
Do you think that Chris Paul and James Harden weren't a good fit? I know they had success together, but you don't think they were a good fit?
Well, on the court, they were clearly a good fit, but I think they had locker room problems because I think Chris Paul he needs to be the leader of a team, and I think James Harden wasn't having it, and I think that led to where they got to today.
And you think that James Harden and Russell Westbrook are cool enough to get over that?
I mean, it seems to be they're very comfortable with each other, and also, I think Westbrook gets unfairly labeled as a bad teammate. Everybody who's ever played with Russell Westbrook has gushed about him as a leader, as a person. I mean, even Paul George, and Paul George left by his own volition, and he even said, I love playing with Russell. He was a great teammate. KD, I know they have a very fractured relationship, but KD was in tears describing how much he appreciated Russell Westbrook during his MVP speech. And even after the Golden State thing happened, he's really never had a bad thing to say about Russell.
Yeah.
And I think with their previous experience, James Harden and Russell in OKC, and, Westbrook has really embraced his role as the second option in this offense. And honestly, trading Capella has really opened up the floor to where Westbrook is almost playing center in a way. And I mean that in regards to the fact that he's the one who's attacking the basket. And it's really it's a 4-out, 1-in offense with Westbrook starting out and going in as that interior threat, and then surrounded by 4 shooters, including Harden. So I'm interested to see how it works. But yeah, I think the second they run into either Anthony Davis or when they run into the Clippers, I think it's going to be a wrap for them. Just because I think that is a gimmick. I don't think you can succeed at a high level with that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if potentially like Westbrook and Harden can hit a hot streak together at the same time.
Yeah.
If they do that, they can really do some damage.
No
And I
doubt.
think the biggest thing for the Rockets too is that they will. It looks like it's very likely that they will not be playing the Blazers. So
Yes.
Russell Westbrook does not have to worry about Dame Dalla.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Dame. Well, hey, even we think that Dame and Russell Westbrook have beef, but they actually don't. They love each other. They've been on the record saying they respect the hell out of each other and they dap each other up after every game. But I think
No,
it's
they
just the way
got
Westbrook.
respect. But I
Yeah.
just think that Dame, when he's playing against Russell Westbrook, something else comes out.
It's awesome to see. I kind of hope they play
Not
each
only
other.
is it Dame time, but they're frozen in Dame time. You're not
Yep.
getting out of that. That dude brings all the game to him. And I think, going with Westbrook being misjudged, I think he is definitely one of those players that you love to have as your teammate, but you may not like to play.
Yeah. Agreed.
And that might rub some people the wrong way. But yeah, I really do respect his game, and he brings a lot. He's definitely one of those players that can do it all, besides shoot a 3.
Yeah.
But even sometimes, right? When he gets hot, he can start hitting those. So it'll be very interesting to see how the playoffs, how both of them, especially with Harden losing 20. I'm interested to see how that's going to affect his play.
Yeah, he was getting up there, man. He was getting a little thick. So.
Hey, but it worked.
Yeah. Hey, it did. Yeah. You can't judge. Got to coach the results, right?
Badass.
right.
You guys got any more to say, or should we cut it here?
No, I think I'm good.
You good,
Sounds
Phil?
good.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Couch Sports Talk podcast. I am Dr. Guzzi for today. We have Phil. We have Young E, the Ethan, the winner. Okay. We really do appreciate if you have listened to this full 2-hour podcast. If not, and you're listening to a clip, thank you anyways. We appreciate that. And before we get off, I do want to remind you guys one last time that you're not going to be able to find another motherfucker thicker than Saquon Barkley. Okay? I am fairly confident that he might be the thickest man on earth. I need him on a commercial, the thickest man on earth. Not the most interesting man on earth, the thickest.
Feel that.
I love
out
how
to
uncomfortable
No
that
argument.
that makes you guys. But anyways, thanks again for joining. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Peace out, everybody.